till the others bring the dynamite.
Brothers, I have brought the dynamite. Please excuse the break in our regularly scheduled programming for something a bit different. Yeah, I do a lot of RPGs, but while I love them as much as a man can love a fictional representation of the hero's journey told in the form of teenagers fighting God, anyone who's seen my Thief or Weird West reviews know that immersive sims own a piece of my heart I can never get back. When I catch wind that a new one is in development, well, it's a momentous occasion. I barbecue, I set off fireworks, I fly my American flag, and all of my Canadian neighbors look at me funny. They don't understand nothing. In the few short years since it came onto the scene, New Blood Interactive has garnered an exceptionally loyal fan base. And why shouldn't they? With a focus on no frills, balls to the walls fun, the very small development studios under the New Blood umbrella have succeeded where many high-budget productions fail, finding the right blend of creative ingenuity and traditionally beloved mechanics from the games of yesteryear. You can't help but feel that these developers consider themselves equal with the player, just as excited to see you enjoying the game as you are to play it. Dispensing with the speed and fury of a medieval, dusk, and ultra kill, Gloomwood pursues a different tradition within video game culture, that of the immersive sim, in particular Looking Glass Thief series. From its early reveal at the PC Gaming Show, it wasn't hard to see where lead developer Dylan Rogers drew his inspiration. Having now finished Gloomwood's early access release several times, in fact, I'm here to tell you all about Gloomwood, where it succeeds, where it fails, and what could be in store for its future. Now, before I get into the review, let's reiterate what an immersive sim actually is, for those who might not know. It's any game where there's audio logs.
Glory to the many.
I am a voice in their choir.
And you can kill children.
Starving. Do you have anything to eat?
You don't look that bad. Tell me what you know about the NSF.
Go to hell.
In all seriousness, the immersive sim, or imsim for short, is a subgenre of video game that emphasizes player agency in any given situation. It's usually first person, although there's a little bit of contention on that. That's an entirely different discussion. Imsims usually involve navigating small, self-contained open world maps with multiple paths to any given destination. A good imsim gives you the tools to blaze your own trail or create your own chaos, encouraging the player to think creatively about their environment and often rewarding the player for, well, breaking the game. I believe I said it best in a previous video. Let me, the player, come up with a solution to a problem, give me the tools to make that solution a reality, and then vindicate me and pat me on the head while telling me I'm a genius for thinking of it. Anyway, onward. Gloomwood is set in a Victorian city, subject to some kind of curse or invasion which sees its denizens replaced with the bright-eyed but presumably not bushy-tailed huntsman, referred to only as the Doctor. Our main character's job is to navigate the nooks and crannies of this world, pilfering some loot, pilfering some decapitated heads, and trying not to be spotted on the way. At this stage in the game, there's not much to say about the premise. Gloomwood seems intent on letting you explore the world and uncover its forgotten secrets for yourself. Just as the story reaches the base of its first crescendo, the game informs you that there's no more content. I'm very interested to see where the story goes, but it's a little disappointing to not even receive the basic context. Let me take the opportunity to say, adjust your expectations here. What we have here isn't yet a game playable from start to finish like, say, V Rising's early access allowed, but rather a vertical slice of fully playable game, with the promise of future extensions and fixes. I think this is important to stress because some people are likely going into this expecting a full game that just needs some ongoing bug fixes, but that's not the case. Gloomwood is essentially a very long demo, and by purchasing its early access build, you're investing in its future. If you're looking for a 10+ hour immersive sim to get lost in, you're not gonna find that here just yet. That said, the critiques in this video should be taken with a grain of salt because there's a very good chance that the vast majority of them will be cleaned up by the time of final release. Starting up Gloomwood, you're immediately greeted with a tactile feeling of being in its world. Moths congregate around a physical light that illuminates the menu options. The system options are stylized as medical records, complete with beautifully drawn vintage anatomical illustrations reinforcing the good doctor's profession. The sense of tactility and immersion extends far beyond the title screen though. As you begin the game, immediately upon starting it, mind you, no cutscenes here, you'll realize that Gloomwood takes a highly minimalistic approach. Any information you need or screens you'll navigate can be found diegetically, that is to say, in the context of the game world rather than weapon just in the game, no HUD. Your inventory is a briefcase that can be opened. The items within aren't just representations of what you picked up, but physical instances of them that can be manipulated, removed, dropped right in front of you. And opening this inventory doesn't stop time. You're not a magic man, just some dude staring at a briefcase while getting shot at. Ammo can be checked on your current gun by holding the reload button, and it probably should be early and often because reloading the revolver is a real commitment, not something that can be pulled off on the fly. Speaking on tactility, the game uses that motif to tackle a problem, albeit very minor, I had with the original Thief games. I'd mentioned in my review of Thief Gold that the light gem, which is used to inform the player of their current visibility, is a bit immersion breaking. Having to peel your eyes away from the universe in order to look at a somewhat large and gaudy piece of UI feels kind of antithetical to Thief's focus on its game world. I also mentioned that I didn't know how to circumvent that, but by God, the clever lads in charge of Gloomwood have come up with a solution. Your character wears a ring on their thumb which always displays visibility levels. Even when weapons are holstered, the doctor still grasps a cane, providing a nice excuse to have that light ring on screen at all times. While I love the idea of the light ring, its implementation isn't perfect. With certain weapons being held, the angle becomes somewhat obstructed, and as a colorblind person, I found it difficult to differentiate between the subtler shades. I only really knew when I was either completely lit or completely in shadow. Perhaps having the option to have it change color like a mood ring could be a good way to solve the issue, like having it be dark purple when it's in shadow and white when in light. Just a thought. Given the light ring and the game's influences, it's safe to say that stealth is a major component of Gloomwood, and how is it? Well, it's better than many stealth games, but doesn't hit the highs of the Thief games just yet. I don't mean to cheapen Gloomwood's identity by comparing it to Thief, by the way, I just think it's the fairest comparison. In Thief, guards have layers to their awareness. They become suspicious without constantly broadcasting it. When they're alert, they stay alert for a very, very long time, to the point where if a guard finds a body, well, you might as well just go explore another part of the level for a while because you're in danger. Thief also cleverly broadcasts guards' intentions using very deliberate motion-captured animations. There are no surprises as long as you're aware. Gloomwood's take on first-person stealth is wanting in this regard. The huntsmen only seem to have a couple of different states, and while they will pursue sights or sounds they deem suspicious, they snap in and out of these alertness states at a very fast pace. They'll give up on finding the player and head back to their patrol routes, the majority of which are fairly static and simplistic. This disincentivized me from paying attention to bodies. I never really felt it necessary to move them because A, guard patrols rarely intersect with one another, so there's only a very small chance that a body will be discovered, and B, even if it is discovered, it doesn't represent a significant threat or hindrance. This is partially true because the guards don't pursue you much, don't know how to navigate water, and become confused when you climb to a higher level, but also because you have an arsenal of weapons at your disposal which can be used to dispatch guards from afar. Let me be perfectly clear once again, this is an early access game. I'm not criticizing the final product, I'm providing my own feedback so these things are improved, and I know they will be. Large, high-budget productions grapple with the intricacies of enemy AI. This small team is going to need more time to balance and iron out the problems. Iron out the problems? Big iron? Guns? Segway? So Gloomwood has guns. Mind you, I know it's not unusual for an immersive sim to have guns, but the tone and feeling of the game has changed in some significant ways after procuring those guns, and I think it's worth talking about. Sims almost always provide ranged options with some balancing, either in the form of requiring a stat investment to make effective use of guns or providing some kind of melee stealth damage bonus. The balance here is that firearms are loud and attract local patrols to your position, and also ammo is limited, at least in theory. This puts you at risk every time you fire a gun. That's fine, I hear you say. I'll just save scum. If it doesn't work out, I'll reload my quick save and try something else. No, you will do no such thing. Gloomwood doesn't allow for user saves, but rather activates checkpoints when a player finds a phonograph. There are so many implications of this, I don't even know where to start. First of all, that tension and danger of consequence inherent to stealth games is amplified tenfold when you know 15 minutes of progress is on the line. All of a sudden, you're really carefully calculating what you can get away with. You're playing safer and smarter. Making it past a difficult section feels all the more satisfying as a result, and there's nothing sweeter than the faint sound of those scratchy piano keys, an oasis in this oppressive world. The opening area also cleverly utilizes some Dark Souls-esque shortcut unlocking in order to use the same save point multiple times, preventing the area from feeling disposable. But this gameplay decision doesn't come without concessions. Without being able to make your own saves, that experimentation inherent to the genre takes a back seat. You may think you're onto something, but when you consider how much progress you'll lose if you're wrong, you may choose to take the conventional, well-trodden path rather than let loose and have some fun with the world. I played through the game on both normal and hard difficulties, and I have to say that playing on hard often elicited the same frustrations I had when I played The Evil Within. In both cases, there are so many secrets tucked away, keys to grab, storage areas to break into, items to pick up, enemies to deal with, and when you die, it just kills your motivation to do it all again. Those special feelings and experiences associated with stumbling across secrets for the first time is replaced with a quiet frustration as you robotically retread that same path, dealing with the same enemies in the same way, picking up the same treasures, die several times between checkpoints, and you may find yourself ignoring the side paths or trying to exploit enemy AI to make it through the area quickly. Ultimately, I think it'll be a matter of preference whether you appreciate the tension built with this survival horror save system or if you miss being able to mess around and stress test the game's world. It's my opinion that this save system hurts Gloomwood, particularly on the higher difficulty, and it would have been nice to have an option to retain high levels of enemy awareness while also using a more traditional immersive save system. In the Hitman games, there's a difficulty that allows you to make a limited number of player saves in the level. I hope to see some kind of a compromise like this made in the future. Now, regardless of how you feel about these mechanics, they do give Gloomwood an identity all its own. Part classic first-person stealth game, part survival horror, even down to your inventory, which takes some obvious inspiration from Resident Evil 4's grid-based system, which is great because that's an awesome inventory system. Right now, the enemy selection feels a bit limited to take full advantage of these new gameplay considerations. With all the guns you have access to, including a very powerful shotgun and a pistol that fires incendiary rounds, I look forward to seeing what kinds of strong enemies or even bosses are included at a later time. At no point was I on the ropes as far as ammo conservation was concerned, but I look forward to a time in Gloomwood when I'm slinking down a cobblestone road, a sliver of health and no rounds left, and I see a crimson head or something. I think this notion of resource management is woefully underexplored in the immersive sim genre, and the developers could really be onto something special if they commit to it. Speaking of special, Gloomwood is one of the more aesthetically unique small-budget games I've played recently. It's not strictly the retro look, which is of course extremely popular in this space, but rather the time period of retro it's emulating. Rather than striving to be a one-to-one copy of Thief or heading back to the PS1/Quake days like Dusk, Gloomwood looks closer to a late PS2 game. There are certainly some analogs to Thief, the doorknobs, even these dirt piles, but Gloomwood blazes its own trail. Models are medium poly, textures are medium detail, effects like shadows and lighting enhance the atmosphere without being top of the line. I've wondered how long it'd be until the PS2 graphical renaissance would arrive, PS1 being much easier for amateur modelers and animators to work with, but Gloomwood is the first game I've played that really embraces that early to mid 2000s look, and it's bolstered with a nice art style that makes for some visually pleasing vistas. Animation work on enemies is somewhat lacking at present. As I explained, detailed and deliberate animations are very important for first-person stealth, elsewise you'll end up dying without knowing what killed you, which happened to me more than once. But what's here looks fine. The death animation for the dogs has a lot of character, which is great because fuck these dogs. Well, don't do that, but these dogs suck. There is a decent range of ambient sounds. Crickets chirping in the night, frogs croaking in ponds, generators whirring. There's also an ambient soundtrack, which appropriately stays out of the way and gives you critical breathing room for hearing enemies while quietly enhancing atmosphere. The weapons sound good. The charge attack for the cane sword gives you an audio cue when it's ready to stabby stabby, and the shotgun sounds awesome. This has potential to be one of the great shotguns. I love the little smoke trail it leaves behind when you fire. It's the little things, man. The voice acting is charming, although the huntsmen sound a little cartoonish for the vibe that the game is going for.
Are you joking? Did you see the claws on that thing? I'm not going anywhere near it until the others bring the dynamite.
The range of conversations is a bit limited as of now, so hopefully there's more guard chatter on the horizon. But I did hear the familiar cadence of Terry Brosius, and as a pathetic creature of meat and bone, I'm really looking forward to hearing her throughout the story.
Hello, Doctor. I had hoped for us to meet at my estate.
Now, what is an immersive sim without good level design? A miserable little pile of no secrets. Thankfully, Gloomwood's levels, of which there are 3 currently, are largely constructed well, especially the opening area, the fishery. There's a nice dingy, dank atmosphere here. You can practically smell all the rotting fish. There are a lot of paths that loop back on one another, elevator shafts can be scaled, and rooftops to gallivant across. The first time I stepped outside the building to stab an enemy, I expected to be concealed by storm clouds, but was surprised by the rotating beam of a lighthouse completely illuminating my character. I was spotted and chased back inside, which was an awesome experience and such a creative use of a background prop. What Gloomwood seems to be lacking right now is the feeling of stumbling across new paths or solutions. Several times I felt I had a bright idea and decided to pursue it, but rather than being vindicated, I was met with dead ends, invisible walls, and in one case, a glitch that forced me to reload my progress. As an example, this door is blocked with junk and requires you go all the way around to move boxes in order to open it. I snuck a peek through the window and started breaking the crates blocking the door, thinking I may have found a sequence break. I even resorted to shooting the crates to break them once they were out of reach. But the last crate here is metal. It can't be broken from this side. I felt like I was given the tools to get the job done, but disallowed from doing the job. I understand the level was built around the loop back to this door, but part of why I love this genre is the freedom to skip sections through creativity. It's disappointing to have confidence in a solution only to have those hopes dashed. The problem is amplified by the realization that there's no use for loot right now, which disincentivizes exploration. All of these coins and jewels are completely pointless currently, making the branching paths and hidden nooks feel like they ultimately lead to nothing, even if there is treasure waiting for you. I hope a use for loot is one of the first things implemented in the coming updates, as this game would benefit from another layer of complexity. I'm just not sure what the loot would be used for, since even on hard difficulty, I was inundated with ammo by the end. I imagine the opening areas will be rebalanced to account for this. Aside from the fishery, there's also a cave section as well as cliffs leading to the lighthouse. Both of these locations are fairly linear and straightforward, but I'll refrain from making any sweeping comments on the game's linearity, as these areas are clearly intended to teach you how to play. They introduce you to new enemies and new weapons and give you small playgrounds to test things out on. It seems like one of the next major updates will include the city's market district, which I suspect will be the first real showing of how winding, labyrinthian, and exploratory these levels can be. I'm really looking forward to it. I think there's a lot of potential with this game's architecture for some hijinks. The level design utilizes some clever tricks in order to guide your thinking. For example, rushing into this area will probably lead you to getting torn apart by dogs. If you wait and take it slow, you'll see that dogs chow down on corpse parts, leading you to understand that carrying around heads and arms actually has a use. That is, creating a priority for the dogs to pursue instead of you. There's a level of craftsmanship throughout these levels that manages to teach you how to play without, well, teaching you how to play. That's the holy grail of these types of games, and for it to have been accomplished so handily is very impressive. There are still times where you'll receive on-screen instructions, such as here, but I imagine people during playtesting just bolted past the lantern thinking it was an in-game light source, so it's unavoidable to an extent. There's a seed of something special in Gloomwood right now, and the small development team have shown themselves capable of germinating it into something wonderful. The save system and emphasis on resource management are bold choices, which in my opinion haven't paid off in this initial early access build, but there's potential to build on these concepts in the future and create something entirely unique. It would have been one thing to simply remake Thief in a slightly newer engine with some new levels, but there's a level of ambition in Gloomwood which could allow it to one day transcend Thief's shadow and become a source of inspiration for other games, just as Thief inspired it. But for now, we judge what we have. Is Gloomwood worth the purchase price of $20? I would say no. Unless your intent is to support the developers and invest in the future of Gloomwood, there are many better options with more polish and more gameplay that $20 can net you. It's true that Gloomwood lacks polish, but more than that, it lacks content right now. It plays as an extended tutorial area, giving you a small taste of what could be, but not enough freedom or content to really stress test the simulation and let loose with your imagination. That said, I recommend keeping a close eye on Gloomwood. I don't think it'll be long before I can give it my endorsement. The bones of something terrific are visible, they just need to be polished and covered with some delicious meaty gibs. Dylan Rogers and David Spaghetti should be very proud of what they've accomplished here, awakening a sleeping tradition and making legions of Thief fans smile for the first time since we heard that Square Enix sold Eidos to another holding company. No pressure, lads, but we're all watching you with great interest. Thanks for checking out this review. I may have mentioned in my previous video that the next thing I'd work on was Xenogears, and I have been working on it, but the next thing I released wasn't Xenogears, so I guess you could say I lied. But not maliciously, it was more like a lie out of ignorance. Xenogears is a really dense game. On top of the story itself, which spans like 70 hours of gameplay, there's also reading I need to do, and then deconstructing and reconstructing the whole thing is just, it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. At any rate, taking a break with Gloomwood provided some respite, and now I'm fully charged and ready to attack Xenogears with every fiber of my being. I'd like to thank my patrons, and in particular, those in my person of lordly caliber tier. Adam Safranco, Matthew Sean Dick, Banana Turnip, Sleepy, Avil, and Hime Takamura, that's 2 separate patrons by the way, they're just married, ain't that sweet? True Manalist, Scatmouth, Spencer Kennelly, Smo Bun, I'm sorry I can't help you, my arms are spaghetti, Captain, BB Squirrel, JBK. I greatly appreciate the support and input from the patron brain trust and from you, the viewer. If you enjoyed the video, maybe you should like and subscribe and enjoy other videos too. As always, until I see you next time, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise.